Neela was driving late one night, the world outside her window cloaked in darkness and silence. The only company she had was the steady rhythm of her own breathing and the occasional flicker of passing headlights from distant cars. The clock on her dashboard glowed 11:58 p.m., its numbers casting a faint blue light across the car's interior, reminding her just how late it really was. She was exhausted after visiting her sister, her body aching for rest, longing for the comfort of her own bed and the familiar warmth of home. The highway was dark and empty, stretching out before her like a ribbon of black velvet, streetlights few and far between, their glow barely piercing the night. The hum of her car was the only sound, a low, constant drone that seemed to echo her fatigue and fill the silence. She sipped lukewarm coffee, hoping it would revive her, but it barely helped. The bitter taste lingered, doing little to chase away the heaviness in her eyelids. The journey felt endless, the darkness pressing in from all sides, making the road ahead seem even longer and more daunting. Neela yawned, fighting to stay awake, her mind drifting to thoughts of her pillow and the quiet of her bedroom. The unfamiliar road seemed even more alien at night, its twists and turns unfamiliar, every shadow a potential threat. Shadows danced at the edge of her headlights, trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out as if to brush the car as she passed. She shivered, telling herself it was just her imagination, that there was nothing out there but the night and her own tired thoughts. No cars ahead or behind, she felt utterly alone, the isolation settling in as the minutes dragged by. The loneliness settled over her, heavy and suffocating, making the car feel smaller and the night outside even larger. Neela gripped the steering wheel tighter, focusing on the road, determined not to let her mind wander too far. She just needed to get home, to reach the safety and comfort waiting for her at the end of this long drive. Soon, she told herself, this long, dark drive would be over, and she would finally be able to rest. The radio played softly, a gentle background to her thoughts, but it did nothing to ease her nerves or the tension in her shoulders. The night seemed endless, and home felt impossibly far away, but Neela pressed on, determined to make it through the darkness and into the light of morning. Neela glanced at her phone. The GPS glowed, showing her route. Suddenly a message, "Faster route available. Save 20 minutes." The GPS suggested an exit onto an unfamiliar road. Neela hesitated. Unknown roads at night felt risky, but the promise of getting home sooner was tempting. She studied the map. The shortcut looked direct. Why not, she thought. The GPS had never failed her. She took the exit, leaving the highway behind. The new road was narrow, flanked by tall, overhanging trees. Her headlights barely pierced the darkness. A knot of unease tightened in her stomach. The road felt old, unused, and bumpy. "It's just a shortcut," she reassured herself. Her voice sounded small in the quiet car. She trusted the GPS, even as the darkness deepened. The arrow on the screen pointed forward, promising home. Neela pressed on, hoping the shortcut would pay off. The new road was straight, and utterly deserted. Neela hadn't seen another car since leaving the highway. No houses, no lights, just endless trees and darkness. The silence pressed in, muffling even her car's engine. She drove on, the woods like walls on either side. Branches scraped the roof, making her flinch. She turned up the radio, but the eerie atmosphere lingered. The fuel gauge was steady, but she hoped the road wouldn't last much longer. The air grew colder, a chill seeping through the heater. This place felt wrong, as if people weren't meant to be here at night. No signs, no mile markers, just repetition. The GPS insisted she was on track. A strange feeling crept over her. Was she being watched? She checked the rearview mirror, nothing but empty road. The sensation wouldn't leave, growing stronger with every mile. This shortcut was far more unsettling than she'd imagined. After 10 more minutes, Neela spotted something ahead. An old, tilted wooden sign stood beside a gnarled, twisted oak tree. The sign's paint was almost gone, unreadable. The tree's branches looked like skeletal arms reaching out. It was a strange, menacing landmark in the monotony. Neela muttered, "That's a strange tree," but felt oddly relieved to see something different. Maybe it meant she was nearing civilization. She drove past, eyes lingering on the landmark. The road continued, the trees closing in again. Silence returned, broken only by her car. She tried to focus, telling herself she'd soon see familiar lights. The GPS showed progress, but the image of the tree stuck in her mind. It felt out of place, almost like a warning. Neela shook her head, blaming her tired imagination. It was just an old tree and sign, she told herself. But the unease wouldn't fade. Neela kept driving, impatience growing. The darkness pressed in on all sides, the only relief the thin beam of her headlights slicing through the night. Every mile felt heavier, as if the car itself was wading through something thick and unseen. The shortcut felt endless, the road unchanged. The scenery outside her window blurred into a monotonous stretch of blacktop and shadowy trees, each one looking eerily like the last. She checked the GPS, it still showed progress, but she felt stuck. The glowing screen insisted she was moving forward, but her gut twisted with doubt. Then, up ahead, she saw it, the same old sign and twisted tree. The headlights caught the peeling paint and the warped branches, just as before. Her heart skipped. No, that can't be right. She gripped the wheel tighter, pulse thudding in her ears. It was identical. The same peeling paint, the same grotesque branches. She was certain she'd already passed this spot. She slowed, scanning every detail. It was the same spot. The air felt colder, as if the night itself was closing in. A cold wave of fear washed over her. Her breath fogged the window and she realized her hands were shaking. Had she turned around without realizing? But the road was straight with no turnoffs. There was nowhere she could have gone wrong. Neela pulled over, hands trembling. She tried to steady her breathing, but her mind raced with questions. She stared at the landmark, confused and scared. The sign and tree loomed in the headlights, silent and accusing. She should be miles past this spot. The GPS said she was, but the world outside disagreed. The GPS still showed her moving forward. The arrow crept along the route, oblivious to her growing panic. The little car icon crept along the blue line. She tapped the screen, hoping for a different answer, but nothing changed. But her eyes told a different story. The world outside was stuck on repeat, a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She drove on, but the dread grew. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer, every tree more menacing. The road, the trees, the darkness, everything repeated. It was as if she was trapped in a story with no end. She passed the landmark again, her fear mounting. Each time it looked more sinister, more impossible. The shortcut was becoming a nightmare. The promise of saving time had turned into a trap she couldn't escape. She was trapped in a loop she couldn't escape. Panic clawed at her chest, and she wondered if she'd ever see the end of this road. The road refused to let her go. The night stretched on, and Neela realized she might never find her way out. Neela sat in her idling car, panic rising. Maybe it was a different sign, a similar tree, she tried to reason, but she knew it wasn't. Her memory was too sharp. The dread was overwhelming. She drove on, passing the landmark again, watching it vanish in her rearview mirror. Her heart pounded as the GPS insisted she was on the right path, but she no longer trusted it. The road ahead looked exactly the same, dark, straight, endless. Time seemed to stretch, each minute an eternity. Confusion gave way to fear. What if this road never ended? She searched desperately for any sign of change, any escape, but there was nothing, just the relentless, repeating darkness. The sameness was suffocating. Neela's hope began to fade. She was lost in a nightmare with no exit. After another stretch, her worst fear was confirmed. The sign and twisted tree appeared for the third time. Neela slammed on the brakes, heart racing. She was trapped, driving in a circle on a road that looked straight. Panic set in. This was impossible. The GPS still lied, showing progress. She threw her phone aside, desperate for escape. She reversed, turned around and sped back the way she'd come. But after what felt like miles, the landmark appeared again, now in front of her. The road twisted reality, playing tricks on her senses. No matter what she did, she always ended up at the same cursed spot. She was truly, horrifyingly trapped. The car felt like a cage. The darkness pressed in, unyielding. Neela realized there was no way out. The road had claimed her. Neela slumped over the wheel, tears streaming down her face. The car's clock read 3:17 a.m. She should have been home hours ago. Instead, she was caught in an endless nightmare. The fuel gauge dropped steadily. Soon she'd be stranded. She tried everything, driving fast, slow, even honking the horn. The trees were too dense to leave the road. The silence was absolute. No one would hear her. The road seemed to change with each loop, or maybe it was her mind unraveling. Shadows deepened, shapes flickered at the edge of her vision, but when she looked, there was nothing. Just endless trees. Despair settled in, cold and heavy. This was no ordinary road. It was something unnatural, malevolent. The shortcut had become a prison with no escape. The night stretched on, unending and merciless. Neela's hope faded with every loop.
Key is in the ignition.
The engine sputtered and died. Neela was out of gas. The silence that followed was thick and absolute, broken only by the faint ticking of the cooling engine. She gripped the steering wheel, heart pounding as the reality of her isolation set in. Her car coasted to a stop near the gnarled tree and broken sign. The wind rattled the branches, making the sign creak and groan as if warning her to leave. Darkness swallowed her as the headlights faded. The world outside her windows became a void, the road behind her erased by the night. She was utterly alone, trapped on a road that refused to let her go. The silence pressed in, heavy and unnatural, as if the night itself was holding its breath. Shivering, she sat in silence, fear overwhelming her. Every shadow seemed to move, every gust of wind a whisper of something unseen. Then, faintly, she heard whispering, soft, insistent, coming from the trees. It was as if the forest itself was alive, murmuring secrets in a language she couldn't understand. The sound grew louder, voices murmuring things she couldn't understand. They seemed to swirl around the car, circling her, growing bolder with every passing second. Neela locked the doors, but the whispering seeped in. It slithered through the cracks, curling around her mind, impossible to block out. She covered her ears, but it was everywhere. The voices pressed against her, filling the car, filling her thoughts until she could barely breathe. The road was alive, and it knew she was there. It watched, it waited, and it wanted something from her. The legend of the Midnight Road was true. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning travelers never to stop, never to linger after dark. No one ever found Neela, not a footprint, not a scrap of clothing, just her car, left behind like a shedskin. Weeks later, her car was discovered by an old, forgotten trail, miles from any highway. The forest had already begun to reclaim it, vines curling over the hood. The trail wasn't on any map. It twisted through the woods like a scar, leading nowhere and everywhere at once. The car was out of gas, her phone dead. It was as if the world had conspired to strand her in that haunted place. Of Neela, there was no trace. She had vanished, leaving only questions and fear behind. Some say the road took her, trapping her in an endless loop, a prisoner of its darkness and secrets. Others whisper she became one of the voices in the trees. On certain nights, if you listen closely, you might hear her calling for help. If you drive lonely roads at night and see an old sign and twisted tree, turn back if you can. Don't stop, don't look back, and never listen to the whispers, because that road doesn't like to be disturbed. It remembers every soul that passes, and it hungers for more. And it always wants company. The darkness is never satisfied, always searching for the next lost traveler. The Midnight Road waits for its next traveler, patient and hungry, its whispers echoing through the night, promising you'll never be alone again.